I'm going to start our trip today with Reverend Tackitt. A little short trip. It's close to the Springtown area where we reside. And pretty interesting story, and we'll start our motorcycle tour today close to home. Reverend Tackitt does have a Wikipedia page, so you can go there. He's in the West Texas Frontier by McConnell, several other books. You might find this interesting to read alongside this video today, showing the place where he resided. This is where Reverend Methodist Minister Tackitt, the Fightin Parson, had his church and cemetery. He's laid to rest here. Springtown, years ago when everybody was in high school and stuff, they used to call it the Glowing Tombstone area, but it's one of those white monuments. He was from around here. He was an itinerant minister. He walked to Fort Belknap and in the area, ministering to people with his dogs, a shotgun, and bowie knives, or butcher knives as they called them back then. Him and his sons were in some scrapes with the Indian or Native American there in around Fort Belknap, and he came back here to retire and minister, but and laid to rest here. But again, this is the resting place of Pleasant Tackitt, the Fightin Parson. Some of Reverend Pleasant Tackitt's family. They were in some scrapes up there around Fort Belknap at the time, and Tackitt Mountain, a cow came up wounded with an arrow, and they went to investigate. Well, they got into a scrape and they were wounded, and they had to come to Springtown to see a doctor. Back in those days, Fort Belknap area, and that would, the forts would come and go. People were settling around there, but they didn't have a lot of things, but it was a growing area. Graham almost had the University of Texas place there. It was as big as Austin around the 1880s and 90s. But they had come back to Springtown here later on because they didn't stick around as Reverend Tackitt got older. 1880s when he passed, he come back home here to retire. He could seek medical attention or whatever. His church was founded here, so speculation on my part about his reasoning, but he did come back to this area. Our family, third great grandfather Zachariah Reagan was a Baptist preacher. His brother-in-law George Washington Black Jr., first man to have a car in Graham. They started most of the Baptist churches in the area. They were funded by the Lovings, the Slaughters, Goodnight, and when they were forming the banks in Dallas and stuff, they helped those pastors build the churches in and around Belknap Graham. And then later on, Zachariah, after his wife passed, he lived in a parsonage in Dallas over there by the Baptist University, and that's where he passed, but he was returning to be buried with his wife in Hillsboro. So these guys were all the beginning of faith preacher ministries in the area. Creek Barbecue, Springtown, Texas.